So, building off that idea, the face doesn't just reflect how we look, it reflects how we're functioning. When Dr. Hinohara talks about aging as a message, this is exactly what he means. That subtle puffiness around the eyes isn't random. It's often the body's earliest whisper that something inside has slipped out of rhythm. Most people immediately blame sleep or age, but in reality, those swollen areas are often signaling deeper disruptions. Circulation slowing down, the kidneys working overtime, or the nervous system stuck in constant stress mode. And when those systems struggle, the eyes are usually the first place to speak up. Dr. Hinohara often asks patients a simple question. Have you ever noticed your eyes looking swollen even when you feel like you slept well? Because that's the moment where the body is saying, I'm overloaded. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, easy-to-miss one. We see this all the time. Someone comes in looking for an eye cream, convinced the problem is skin deep. But what they actually need is better circulation through the face and relief for their kidneys. One woman in her 70s did exactly that. She wanted something topical. Instead, she learned how to support her internal systems. Within weeks, the puffiness eased and she said something that stuck. Her face finally matched how she felt on the inside again. That's the power of listening instead of covering things up. And it raises a bigger question. If puffiness isn't happening on the surface, then where does it really begin? What's actually going on inside the body when swelling shows up under the eyes? Because once you understand that, everything starts to click. So, picking up right where that idea lands, this isn't about vanity. It never was. Puffy eyes are one of the body's most overlooked warning signs, especially as we get older. A lot of people just shrug and say, guess I didn't sleep great, or, well, that's aging. But here's the thing. Aging doesn't just randomly show up on your face. The body follows patterns, and the area under the eyes is one of the first places those patterns become visible. In this episode of the Senior Health Podcast, we're slowing things down and really looking at what the eyes reflect about internal health. Because when subtle signs like swelling get ignored, they don't stay subtle for long. Over time, they can speed up aging in ways most people never connect back to the original signal. Research from the National Institutes of Health shows that after 60, fluid retention, chronic stress, and blood sugar issues increase sharply. And guess where they tend to show up first? The soft tissue under the eyes. That skin is delicate, unprotected, and incredibly sensitive to what's happening deeper inside the body. That's why this conversation matters. Sitting across from me is Japan's oldest practicing physician, Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who spent decades reminding people that aging isn't a decline, it's a message. And often, the face whispers what the body needs most long before symptoms show up anywhere else. So let me ask you this. Have you ever looked in the mirror after a full night's sleep and still seen swollen eyes staring back at you? Because if you have, your body may already be trying to start a conversation. But here's where things start getting really interesting.
All right, let's take that question and go deeper. Because puffiness doesn't start under the eyes. It starts much farther inside. The body never works in isolation. And what shows up on the face is usually the final stop of a much longer chain reaction. What you're seeing beneath the eyes is the result of signals coming from the bloodstream, the kidneys, and the nervous system all at once. And for many people, that chain reaction quietly begins with sugar. Not just candy or desserts, but the slow daily buildup of glucose from processed carbs that slips under the radar for years. The area under the eyes is incredibly sensitive. The tissue there is soft, almost sponge-like, and it sits right near the surface. So when the body starts holding on to excess fluid, that's often the very first place it shows. And the real driver behind that fluid retention is insulin. When we consume too much sugar, the body releases more insulin to manage it. Over time, that system gets tired. Insulin resistance sets in, sodium starts getting trapped in the bloodstream, and fluid follows right along with it. The kidneys try to filter the excess, but they can only do so much. It's like a drain working against a rising tide. It doesn't fail all at once, it just gets overwhelmed. Dr. Hinohara remembers a man in his late 60s who didn't come in complaining about his eyes at all. He felt tired, foggy, not quite himself. But the puffiness around his eyelids told the story before he ever did. Once he eased away from processed carbs, his blood pressure softened, his kidneys lightened, and over a few weeks, the swelling slowly faded. That's when it becomes clear. This isn't aging, it's accumulation. And the eyes aren't trying to look tired, they're trying to be heard. But here's where things take an unexpected turn, because sugar isn't the whole story.
So let's follow that thread. Because once the body starts accumulating instead of releasing, the question becomes why it can't let go. This is where something most people never consider comes into play: mineral balance, specifically potassium. When the body begins to rebalance itself, the first thing it looks for is harmony between minerals. Potassium is the quiet partner that often goes missing, especially as we age. Without enough of it, cells cling tightly to sodium, and when sodium stays put, fluid lingers where it doesn't belong. For many seniors, years of processed food and chronic stress slowly drain potassium without anyone realizing it. And once again, the eyes are where that loss shows up first. In clinic after clinic, the pattern repeats. People say they're tired, worn down, foggy, but what their cells are really doing is asking for balance. When potassium comes back into the picture through food, something gentle begins to shift. Blood vessels relax. The kidneys filter with less strain. Fluid finally has somewhere to go. This isn't dramatic or overnight. It feels more like a knot slowly loosening after being tied for years. One woman said that after just 2 weeks of eating more potassium-rich vegetables, her face felt lighter. Not tighter, lighter. She described it like someone had turned down the noise inside her head. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a softness she hadn't noticed in years. That's the kind of change quick fixes can't deliver. When the kidneys stop struggling, the eyes brighten. When blood moves more freely, puffiness loses its grip. These aren't beauty effects, they're signs of internal peace. And the more consistently people support that balance, the more their mornings begin to feel different. Their thoughts feel clearer. Their faces begin to show ease instead of strain. But potassium doesn't work alone. And this is where many people get stuck without knowing why. Because there's another system that can either support this balance or quietly undo it. So here's the missing piece: stress. Even with the right nutrients, the body can't fully release fluid if the nervous system is stuck in high alert. This is where potassium's effects often get blocked without anyone realizing it. When we live in constant stress, the body tightens everything: muscles, breath, blood vessels, and yes, fluid. The sympathetic nervous system stays switched on, and that triggers a hormone called renin. Renin tells the body to hold on to sodium, which means potassium can't do its job, no matter how clean the diet looks on paper. That's why people who feel wired, anxious, or constantly on often have the most stubborn puffiness around their eyes. The body isn't broken, it's protecting itself. But that protection comes with a price. It starts with swelling, then moves into brain fog, restless sleep, sluggish digestion. A quiet storm builds under the surface, and most people don't even notice how long they've been carrying it. This is where external practices become powerful. They send a signal the nervous system understands, a message that says, "You're safe now, you can let go." That's why what comes next matters so much. We're not talking about forcing fluid out or pressing harder on the skin. We're talking about reminding the body how to circulate again, gently, naturally, in a way it recognizes. Dr. Hinohara calls this the moment where the body remembers itself. And that brings us to the heart of today's episode, a simple 4-step practice that speaks directly to the nervous system, the lymph, and the muscles around the eyes. Small movements done slowly that can soften puffiness far faster than most people expect. So stay with me, because the first step isn't a massage at all. It starts somewhere much simpler. So let's begin exactly where the body does, with the breath, because the breath is the switch that turns off the internal alarm system. Before any movement, before any touch, the nervous system has to feel safe enough to release.
The first step is simple but powerful. Take 2 or 3 slow breaths in through the nose. Then, on each exhale, let it last just a second longer than the inhale. That slightly extended exhale sends a clear message to the vagus nerve. The danger has passed. And if you pay close attention, you can actually feel the soft tissue beneath the eyes begin to relax almost immediately. It's subtle, but it's real. The face carries stress long before we're aware of it, and the breath is like asking the body for permission to begin. Once the breath steadies, we move into step 2. Place 3 fingertips gently beneath each eye, not pressing, just resting. Then begin a slow, rhythmic pulsing motion. The pressure should barely move the skin. This isn't about force, it's about rhythm. Continue for about 30 to 40 seconds. This is where the lymphatic system starts to wake up. The area under the eyes is one of the most delicate on the entire body. When fluid gets stuck there, it shows fast. These light pulses give that fluid a direction instead of letting it pool and grow heavy. Most people assume they need pressure to make something happen, but here, softness creates movement. It's often the gentlest signals that the body responds to the fastest. And this is just the beginning, because once that fluid has somewhere to move, the next step makes sure it actually has a place to go.